The podcast that you're about to listen to may cause some listeners to order 40 cases of baby oil and stash them away in their house somewhere.
Well, hey there, happy innovators. How are you all doing today? I hope that you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. You know, about a month ago, I was in the market for a short sleeve button-up shirt. And I found one on Amazon.com, some website that was selling clothing. And it was like $20, like a good price. So I went ahead and I ordered it. Now, when the shirt came, and it came very quickly, and for $20, but the shirt was a piece of crap, okay? I mean, it was like the crappiest material. The stitches were all messed up and goofy. The buttons and everything were kind of effed up a little bit. And I was kind of like shocked that it was so bad. So, my wife and I were talking about it, and we were, looking up things on the internet about this particular problem of ordering a piece of clothing and then having it be like, substandard. And it turns out that this is actually a rather large-scale problem nowadays with clothing. And both my wife and myself, had never even heard of this or thought about it or whatever, because we don't spend a lot of our time, following fashion or thinking about that kind of stuff. It's like when we need something, we buy it, and that's how it goes. You know what I mean? So we actually started to do a little bit of a deep dive into this. And basically what I found out was something that I really wanted to talk about. And it's this idea called fast fashion, okay? And the irony being that the band Depeche Mode, that's what their name means. Depeche Mode is French for fast fashion, okay? But that's not what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about this idea of fast fashion and how basically it's something like this, that a long time ago, well, actually not that long ago, maybe like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, clothing was made very differently. Like the business model for fabricating clothing was different, and the standards were different, and the whole mode of production was completely different than what we get now. And over the years, I've bought new clothes, and I've also gone to thrift stores and I've bought old clothes as well. Like whatever appeals to me, I'll buy. And, sometimes, I guess with some people, buying secondhand clothing from a long time ago is kind of looked down on. Okay? So I've always kind of like known that, but I don't really care about that kind of stuff, okay? Like if somebody thinks that, because something is old, it's no longer good, well, that's kind of stupid to me, okay? So like over the years, there's been countless times where I've gone into a retail store and I saw something I wanted and I bought it and I wore it, whatever. There's also been just as many times when I've gone into a thrift store and found something I liked and I bought that as well. Now, the difference is, today, is that I'm finding that a lot of the time, those clothes that I bought that were secondhand, but they were old, maybe from the 70s or 80s or 90s or something, they are more durable and they're made with a different level of quality that the clothing that you buy today is made in. So basically all this shakes down to this idea of what we grew up knowing as NAFTA, the trade agreement that was made back in the late 80s or early 90s. I'm not quite sure. And I remember when Bill Clinton was running against George Bush Sr., and there was also a third party guy named Ross Perot. And Ross Perot famously said at one of the debates between the three candidates that NAFTA, this trade agreement, was like a loud sucking sound. And that's what he said. And like it was going to be the demise of our trade agreements. And I suppose now, with all this stuff going on with Trump and all that kind of stuff, it's relevant now, and what we're finding out all these years later, 20, 30 years later, we're finding out that Ross Perot was right, that NAFTA was really not good for the United States. And we are now living out the effects of NAFTA. And we can see that because of the way that it's structured and the way that trade goes nowadays, the clothing that we're buying that's brand new is like junk. I mean, the quality is so bad. And like I said, I bought this one shirt. It was like shocking to me how bad this shirt was. And I couldn't even wear it. It was a piece of junk. And so maybe like a week after that, I got in the car because I wanted a button-up shirt, a short sleeve button-up shirt. And I wanted it to be like colorful, like a color, a solid color. That's what I wanted. So the shirt that I ordered on like Amazon or whatever was a green shirt. Okay, something colorful. That's what I wanted. And like I said, I couldn't wear it. So when I went out to the thrift store, I was looking for a button-up shirt, and I found one. It was an older shirt. It was orange, and it was made really well, okay? And, even though it was an old piece of clothing, it had held up pretty damn good, So I bought it, and now I'm wearing it. So I have this green shirt in my closet that's just sitting there. Total waste of money, total waste of time. And instead I'm wearing this old second-hand shirt that was in better condition than the brand new shirt. And like I said, this is called fast fashion. So if you're interested in researching this kind of thing or checking it out, there you go. Look up fast fashion. But I'm sure by now a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast have probably heard of it or experienced something like what I'm talking about. You go to the store to get a pair of blue jeans and they suck. They're made so poorly. And that's not to say you can't find, a good pair of jeans that are brand new, because I have. But for the most part, they're crap. They're junk. And, it's not just with clothing. It's with a lot of other things that are available to be purchased nowadays. There's a lot of really crappy, construction, crappy designs, things that are not put together well. And, the same goes for even like food, over the years, I'm sure all of you know what I'm talking about. Like the quality of the food is gone like right in the toilet. Like it is so bad sometimes. Like if you want to find something that's good and healthy to eat, you have to kind of like hunt for it. You have to look for it. You have to find it because it's not readily available all the time. So a lot of the time, like for me, finding good, healthy food is something I have to actively do. Now, it's like if I want to find good clothing, for the most part, I'm pretty much going to have to do the same thing. And I'm going to have to rely on thrift stores, secondhand stores, to buy clothing that's of good quality. Isn't that strange? I think it's strange that something that is brand new, okay, is made so poorly, constructed, put together so poorly that it's unwearable. It's awful, And yeah, they got my $20, okay? I guess that was the mission on their end, right? Was to get the money for this piece of crap shirt. But I'll never buy from them again, you know? And apparently, you know, I'm not the only person who's thinking this way. So I'm sure you probably know what I mean. And if you don't, like I said, go check it out. The term is fast fashion. Look it up. There's a lot of people talking about it now because something has got to change on that front. And hopefully it will. You know, there seems to be a lot of change in the air these days with different trade agreements and all that kind of stuff. Maybe when all of it shakes down, we'll be able to buy clothing that's, you know, of good quality. But it's also like a fair price too, you know? Anyway, have you guys ever checked out any of the AI artwork that's available online and stuff? You could see it like in videos and all kinds of still images or whatever, these images that are conjured up by AI. And, you know, I have, and I've noticed, I don't know if you have, but I've noticed that a lot of the images are weird. You know, there's like something about AI artwork that's a little creepy. You know, it's like, it could be a picture of like a unicorn or a picture of a, you know, an old couple, you know, drinking coffee, but there's something about the image that's not quite right. It's a little bit creepy. And I've been noticing this a lot. I have been looking at these images, watching these videos, and I'm trying to pinpoint, like, what is it about this artwork that is so weird? It's like a darkness to it, even though it's like something that's supposed to be pleasant, you know? And I've come up with a hypothesis that I think I want to kind of express here to see if anybody else is thinking the same way that I am. But basically, my thoughts go something like this: that when an artist is creating like an image of something from their imagination, okay, a human being is creating something from their imagination, there's a part of their being, a part of their soul, okay, what we would call the soul, in what they're creating, okay? And you can't like see it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, you know? It's just something that's in the image that they make. And that goes for music, it goes for anything, you know, any kind of creative whatever, okay? And my hypothesis is basically that because AI does not have a soul, okay, that when you look at the images that they generate, they're soulless. They can mimic what human beings do. Like AI can go back into the history of paintings and generate a painting based on what's already been done by people, okay? But no matter what ever happens with art that's AI generated, it will never have a piece of a soul in it. And it's kind of like an abstract thought, really, maybe a little bit strange, but to me, it's something that kind of makes sense. And to be honest with you, I've never really thought about it before until now, like until I saw artwork that I feel was generated without any soul. So, like, the implication of that would be that when we see an artist like Picasso, okay, his artwork is very abstract, challenging, you know, human proportions and all those kinds of things with cubism or whatever. No matter how wild it got, it was still infused with the soul of Pablo Picasso. So You didn't know it, I didn't know it, but it's in there. So when you look at a painting or when you hear a song that's made by somebody, a real human being, like, that's part of the deal, is like a little bit of that person's soul that generated that something that you're looking at or listening to or whatever. There's a part of their soul in what you're looking at. Now think about that. Isn't that wild? Like, I could be wrong. This is just my spitballing here at this idea, right? Because I'm seeing these images and damn, a lot of the time it's just like, every time I see one, I can tell that it's AI generated. I don't have to have anybody tell me. I can look at it, and just going by the feeling that I get when I look at it, I know that it's AI generated, because AI is a robot. It doesn't have a soul. And art and music and painting and movies, all this stuff that is creative is made with soul. Like, even the worst artist painting something, or even the worst film director making a film, or the worst songwriter ever making a song, if they're human, there's a piece of their humanity in what they're doing. And it's not visible, it's not tangible, it's not something you can touch or something you can buy. It's something that's infused into the thing. Isn't that wild? Like, what if I'm right? What if I'm right? I may be the only person who's even saying this. That the reason that you look at AI art and it creeps you out and you can tell it's just off a little bit is only because it has no soul in it. It has no person behind it putting a piece of themselves into what they're doing. And what does that say for me? I've spent my life creating things and making things. So does that mean like a little piece of my soul, like literally the energy of my being, is imparted into that thing I made? Isn't that wild? Like, what a strange thing to even think about as an artist. And I've been doing this forever. I never thought about it that way. Like, there may be something to that. Like, there really may be something to that. Think about it. Is artwork or any kind of creative anything that's generated by artificial intelligence, okay, is it devoid of soul? Therefore, it's creepy. Like, as human beings, when we look at something that was not made by other people, it's made by this artificial thing. And yeah, maybe it's like, a highly detailed, a very nice color palette. All those elements are there, a well presented image. Only it's devoid of soul. Think about that the next time you guys check out anything that's generated by AI. And maybe you'll see it the same way that I do. Okay, so I have one more thing I want to talk about today. Really quick. It's going to be kind of a short podcast, I guess, today, because I got to hustle. But I've been seeing a lot of stuff over the past couple years about P. Diddy and like the sex trafficking and the Diddy parties and the baby oil and all this stuff, right? And there's all these people that are coming forward and they're saying things like P. Diddy, sexually assaulted me, or he had people murdered, or, all that salacious kind of stuff. But I've noticed that nobody is really talking about this, okay? And basically, there's these people that have made claims that P. Diddy was a very powerful person in the music industry, and he was a gatekeeper, okay? And that meant that he had a lot of power, like he had a lot of say in like what artists were going to make it onto the radio or, into our ears. Like, he presided over what was ultimately going to be made available to us or not. And there's probably, if that's true, if there's any truth to that, then there's probably a whole host of musicians that were in his hands at one time. And because he was the way he was, they were denied entry into the music industry and they were kicked to the wayside. And I'm bringing it up because that's really kind of a real tragedy that nobody's really talking about. Like the sex stuff and the Diddy parties and all that, that's bad enough. But no one is really pointing out the fact that this guy was an arbiter, a curator. You know, he was in charge of what we got to hear and what we got to see as far as music was concerned, and maybe even like films, music videos, or whatever. You know, like rather than P. Diddy having all this power and control and having all these sex parties or whatever, but wow, did we get a lot of great music from this guy. You know, wow, he was in charge of who could come in and who wasn't allowed in. And he did such a great job with that. Yeah, he had a problem with sex or whatever. But when it came to, you know, having good quality music and like really talented people getting a fair shot, okay, at stardom or fame or popularity or whatever, he totally mishandled it and totally screwed a lot of people over, probably. And I would imagine over the next few years, we're going to hear a little bit about that. You know, I've already heard some people talking about it, but they're not really coming from the same place that I am, where I'm saying, you know, for a guy who was given all that power over people's lives, you know, when artists would submit music to him and he would say, oh yeah, you know, we're going to sign you up and we're going to hook you up, but you got to do a few things first. And they would say, well, I don't really want to do those few things. Well, no record deal for you. You know, like what a horrible person to do that. You know, whatever his sexual proclivities are, whatever, that's him. Okay. But this idea of being given the keys to the kingdom and like only letting people in that would do things for you sexually. Like how many artists were like, hell no, I'm not doing that for fame or something. Oh my gosh. It's like what that is a real tragedy. Yeah, the other stuff is bad too. Don't get me wrong. But man, there's a whole nother layer to this. I mean, that guy's job, he was there. He was appointed, he was given that power to be a gatekeeper for the music industry, and he just like totally dropped the ball, like a complete failure. Yeah, there's a couple of artists that eked by, you know, in the P. Diddy kingdom, and they wound up becoming, you know, famous or whatever, but how many artists were denied because of him and his pathology, you know, like what the hell? And that is a real tragedy. It really is. There's got to be, you know, legions of artists that were very good and wanted to make it, and they worked very hard and they tried and they got to him and he shut them out because they wouldn't, you know, join the Diddy party, you know. Wow. That's pretty low and pretty disappointing. Yet, you know, it's like typical nowadays. There are a lot of artists and musicians in the world, and a lot of them are very talented and very good and sincere. But they make the mistake of making art in order to become famous, okay, and to make money. And I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. art and music are not commerce, okay? You either are an artist or you are not. You are either doing it or you are not, whether you make money or not. So I make some money, but that doesn't have anything to do with me making music. I made music a long, long time before I made any money off of it. In fact, most of the time, I wound up paying to play. That's how it worked. But I did it because the art was what was important to me, not the money, not the fame. So, like I said, if you are an artist or a creator in some way, and you're doing it because you have these hopes, these high hopes of making a lot of money or becoming very famous, then you're already off to a bad start. If you're really, truly a great artist or a serious artist, you're going to be making art no matter what. You're going to be doing it whether you're making money or not, or whether people hear it or not. Now, it's fortunate if you're that kind of person and people do hear what you're doing and you do make money off of what you're doing. That's great. That is the dream. Okay? But if that money goes away and that fame goes away, what are you going to do? Stop making music? Stop making art? You'd be a fool and you'd be a phony. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to be doing this art thing, you're going to be serious about it, then you're never going to stop, regardless of money or fame or P. Diddy or anything. The only thing that will stop you will be death. It's a job you don't retire from. It's a state of being. So, yeah, that's how I feel. That's really how I feel. I hear so many artists talking about this idea of I was making money and I got this and I got that and then I lost it all. It was over. You know, really? It was over? You mean you didn't just keep going like, you know, before you made any money? It's so silly and stupid. Music and art are not commerce. Okay? Make the art, make the music. And if money comes, great. If money goes, great. But keep going. Keep making the next thing. That's my opinion. And I've been doing it for a long, long time. So I have a little bit of an educated opinion about this topic. So, my happy innovators, I just needed to get that off my chest. What a shame that somebody like P. Diddy was in charge. He was minding the store. What a disaster. What a jackass, you know? And oh, those poor people that were trying to make it, struggling, working hard, doing God knows what to get to the top, you know? Only to bump into that guy and get the door slammed in their face, you know, because they wouldn't, you know, please him. What the? Get out of here. You know what I mean? So, anyway, my happy innovators, I love you one and all. And remember, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy, everybody. Okay, happy innovators, for all of you that were gracious enough and generous enough with your time to hang around to the end of the podcast to hear some music, I've got a song for you today I'm going to share, and it's a song called I Know You. It's a pipe choir song that I wrote and recorded a long time ago, but for one reason or another, I don't think it made it to an album by pipe choir. It's just always remained like a single. So I'm going to have to probably remedy that. But a lot of people like the song, and I'm going to share it with you here. So without further ado, here we go. Pipe Choir's I Know You. Check it out. Peace out, everybody. Have fun, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.
we say, the things we say, you never do. The words that you say, the words I say, are just words we say. It's more than precious time we lose along the way. And you say you